जय जय श्री राधे। सब वैष्णवों को सादर और सप्रेम Jai Shri Krishna. Continuing with the reading of the biographies of the 252 Vaishnava disciples of Sri Gosaiji, day 93, and Varta 70, continuing into 71. 70 is the story of Harit and Patit, and we continue here. Bhav Prakash. This story reveals something of Chacha Harivamsji's form. A Vaishnava is not afraid of anyone or anything, for in their heart resides Sri Thakurji, who is the controller of everything, especially time itself. Death and karma are both under his subjugation. Paramananda Das has written this pad in Rag Sarang. The devotees of Sri Thakurji are never afraid of anything. For Lord Brahma, the Creator, and all other gods and goddesses stand before them with palms joined and bow down before them. If a lion is your friend, why would you need to found a village for protection? This would be an unheard of and unseen contrary act. Why would you fear a dog if you are seated on an elephant? This is not written in the scriptures. For those who walk the good path, and those fools who walk the bad path, this Sri Krishna is the ocean of compassion and all-powerful towards everyone. Now the poet Paramananda Das Ji sings, "My Lord is the friend of the downtrodden and the granter of fearlessness." Vaishnavas are very generous. Even if someone does them wrong, they reciprocate with beneficence. They can remove the pain of life between birth and death. Suradas Ji has also composed on this subject in Rag Dhanashri. Such devotees cross over the ocean of life and liberate others as they go along. They are most compassionate, most benevolent, and remove the sorrows of those who take refuge in them. They are friends to all, enemies to none, and free from all conflict. They chant the names of the Lord unceasingly and relieve others from the burning pain of doubt and grief. They have conquered anger, possessiveness, arrogance, envy, delusion, conceit, infatuation, and confusion. They are free from greed and have no enemies, and always contemplate Sri Krishna's beauty in their hearts. They hear and sing Sri Hari's names, worshipping thus they disperse all grief. The poet Suradas now sings, the devotee becomes immersed in Sri Krishna's form, thus neither good nor bad qualities can affect them. Chacha Harivamsji is such a devotee. When these two Rakshas took shelter in him, he remembered Sri Gosaiji and let them hear the holy name. This put Chachaji in the position of Guru to them. Then they were uplifted and reached the eternal Leela in the same way as the Rajput's daughter had done. One can see this here. Part 1 continued. Then all the Vaishnavas and Chachaji came to Sri Gosaiji in Gokul. After bowing to him and finding a good time to do so, Chachaji told him the whole story of the Rakshas brothers. He asked of him, "O Maharaj, who were they in their previous birth? What good deed had they done that they got this chance meeting and were all thus uplifted? Please tell me all of this." Sri Gosaiji said, these two brothers had been Vaishnavas in their previous birth. They were Sri Mali Brahmins and lived in Gujarat. They used to serve the Lord very nicely. However, they were poor. Once they were on a tour of Vraja. They had completed their wanderings and were on their way home. They came to the house of one Vaishnava. The Vaishnava was not at home. He had gone out on an errand. His wife was at home. However, thinking them to be Vaishnavas, the wife invited them in. She gave them supplies. They bathed and pulled water from the well, cooked and made their offerings. They partook of the Mahaprasad and sang songs of the Lord's pastimes in the evening. The wife let them sleep inside the house. She made them comfortable, and they slept there. The wife wore a lot of jewellery, and there was a lot of wealth in the house. The two brothers got up in the middle of the night. The younger addressed the elder. "She is wearing a lot of jewellery. There is no one else here. Let's beat her up and tie her up and take all her jewellery." In this wicked state of mind, they got up and began to look around. Taking a knife with him, one of them stuffed some cloth into her mouth. The other brother sat on her chest and stabbed her in a couple of places before taking her jewellery. Then the two of them ran away. They got 40 miles in the course of the night. She came to and spat the cloth out of her mouth. Then she called out. Lots of people came. Morning broke and they went to report this to the local jewellers' men. 10 men went to look for the brothers but were unsuccessful. Then the husband came home. He heard the whole story and said to his wife, "Please tell me everything in detail." He was then very angry with his wife, saying, "Why did you let them in the house? Please never do this again." She piped up, "I thought they were Vaishnavas and that is why I let them stay." She bound her injuries with some cream and bandages and recovered in a few days. The two brothers were on their way home. There was a group of thugs and thieves armed with spears on the road. They followed the two brothers on the banks of the river in the woods. They seized them and took them to that narrow gorge and killed them. They stole all the stuff that they had just stolen. The two Brahmin brothers were incarnated as Rakshas on that very day. Thus they took birth in a demonic womb. They had been Vaishnavas of the Vaishnuswami lineage some 500 years before, but still they came to Sri Thakurji's mind, and he blessed them by letting them have their sight. Your sight. He blessed them by letting them have your sight. Their impurities were cleansed and they regained their knowledge. By re-establishing their relationship with us, they were able to re-enter the eternal Leela. Bhav Prakash. In the eternal Leela, these two are two Sakhis named Naro and Waro. They manifest from Chitralekha and are thus forms of her tamasi divine loving sentiment. In this story, they re-enter the Leela through their relationship with Chacha Harivamsji and through him with the grace of Sri Gosaiji. The question here arises, these two had not been initiated with Brahma Sambandh. How then did they enter into the eternal Leela? The answer given here is that in the same way as the story of Krishnadas Adhikari, the daughter of the prostitute, entered the Leela through the auspices of Krishnadas, and then Sri Lalitaji had Sri Swaminiji grant them the Brahma Sambandh. Here, in the same way, Chandrakala had Sri Chandravali Ji grant these two brothers Brahma Sambandh. Bhav Prakash. Therefore a Vaishnav must proceed very thoughtfully through life. Destiny can become like that of these two brothers because of such great offences. Afterwards they attained the Lord through the association and the sight of a Vaishnava. Elevated Vaishnavas are such. Sri Gosaiji has stated this clearly. When Chacha Harivamsji and the other Vaishnavas heard this tale, they were all very happy. Thus concludes Varta 70, the story of Harit and Patit, who were the recipients of Sri Gosaiji's great grace and thus became accomplished Vaishnavas. There is no end to their story. Continuing here into Varta 71, the story of two renunciate Vaishnavas who lived together. Bhav Prakash. These two were born into Brahmin families in a village about 10 miles from Rajnagar. The two families lived in the same locality. The two boys played, ate and drank together. They were very dear friends. When they reached the age of about 5, their parents sent them to study with one Panditji, or learned man. One of them was quite good in his studies, but the other was simple and learnt nothing. Then both their parents arranged their marriages. Both of their wives arrived. Both of the wives were of bad dispositions and were rude and confrontational with everybody. They would both take everything they were given and send it back to their own parents. Everyone in the two houses was very aggrieved. After some time, the two sets of parents died. The two of them said to each other, "Oh, brother, it would not be right to stay here where there is only constant conflict. We should find somewhere else to live." One day they just left without telling anybody and came to live in Rajnagar. They survived by begging and lived like renunciates. They didn't speak much to anybody and did not sit with anyone without a purpose. Once the two of them arrived in Asaruva, and came to Bhaila Kotari's home. Sri Gosaiji was residing there. He was washing his feet under a kota tree. The two of them had his sight and were stunned by his effulgence. They stood before him with their hands joined. Sri Gosaiji looked at them and smiled. He said, "Oh, why do you wander around from place to place? Your lives may be fulfilled if you worship the Lord." Hearing his words, the two of them gained a little knowledge, realizing that he must be a great soul. Otherwise, how would he have just come out with such a statement, even when he didn't know them? The two of them stood still humbly before him and said, "Oh, great Maharaj, we don't know anything about worshipping the Lord. There was too much conflict in our homes, that's why we left, and we have been wandering around. Today we have had your sight and feel very blissful. We have now taken refuge in you. Please grace us and tell us about how to worship the Lord." Seeing their humility, Sri Gosaiji was very pleased. Bhaila Kotari was standing just there. Sri Gosaiji instructed him to get the two brothers bathed into upparas and to then bring them back to him. Bhaila Kotari did just that and also gave them the appropriate garments to wear, dhoti and uparana. Thus the two of them, properly dressed, having applied forehead marks and worn tulsi necklaces, and taken some dust from the Lord's feet to Charanamrit, came before Sri Gosaiji in this pure state. Sri Gosaiji blessed them by initiating them with the Lord's name and Brahma Sambandh. He told them, "Now you two should stay here with Bhaila Kotari for some days. Read Sri Acharyaji's treatises and then you will begin to understand this path." The two of them went to stay with Bhaila Kotari. For as long as Sri Gosaiji stayed in that place, they served him and all the Vaishnavas that had come to see him. They regularly listened to Sri Gosaiji's divine discourses and read Sri Acharyaji's writings. The clever one would always massage Sri Gosaiji's feet at the time He took his rest and asked him about all sorts of esoteric matters. He would also ask Baila Kotari whenever he did not understand anything. He was greatly blessed by Sri Gosaiji. The other brother was just simple. And Sri Gosaiji told him to stay with his brother and do whatever he told him to. Sometime after this, Sri Gosaiji went to Gokul. The two of them lived in a renounced way and would wander around together. This is where we will rest the readings for today and continue tomorrow with part 1 of Varta 71, the story of the two renunciate Vaishnavas. Aaj ke Anand ki jai, Shri Vallabhadisha ki jai, Sab Vaishnav ko jai Shri Krishna. Jai Jai Shri Radhe.